All right, one more time.
No, now you're recording.
Yeah. All right. Hello and welcome to Bookworms. It's the show where two brothers read books and then talk about those books. I'm your host, Alex.
And I'm Joe.
How are you doing, Joe?
I'm doing fantastic, Alex. How are you doing?
I am doing well.
Just well? You're not fantastic?
Not fantastic.
What's wrong? What's going
man.
on? What can we do to change this experience?
Oh, so aggressive. I love it. Yeah, we are in a new location. Oh, actually, this is not a new location. This is the second time in this location. We won't tell anyone because Joe might get in trouble.
Yeah, probably not. But we won't mention the location.
Yes.
Just in case.
Yeah. The last time we were here, we recorded John Dies at the End. So that's how long ago it was.
Is it that long ago?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
That was episode 4. No, that was my 4th book of that first season. So, yeah, that was episode 8. No, 7. 7. I'm the odd
Alex
numbers.
can count. Don't worry.
Yeah. I'm the odd numbers because I'm odd.
Yeah, we'll call you that.
But we are an even episode for this season because it's Joe's pick.
Yes, I picked Caves of Steel by Isaac Asimov. This is the first full-length novel of the Robot series. This is not the first robot book. I, Robot, which is a series of short stories and other short stories with robots and the laws of robotics, did come out before this.
And this ties in with his Foundation trilogy as well, right?
Eventually. It's a very loose world connection there. Having read those books, meh, but it's...
Those are generally considered as masterpieces.
Well, no. The Foundation books are great. I'm saying that the ones that connect...
Oh, okay, the tie-in novels.
The tie-in novels. Because Foundation was actually started before this series was started.
Right.
Even though these books take place thousands of years before, which are also thousands of years after where we are now in humanity. Even though if you read these books, it seems like we're still stuck in the 1950s, 40s. So what I've noticed with a lot of these sci-fi authors that wrote in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, everything takes place thousands of years later, like as if humanity is very slow at evolving. They did not predict very well the age of computers and the rapid expanse of technology, where we could have these caves of steel in maybe a few hundred years instead of thousands.
Yeah, like whenever there's a technology boom, like it goes really fast. Like, even the Industrial Revolution, like things just exploded.
Well,
the Renaissance, like 100 years, and you had all these new things. So, but now with like the addition, like the internet and computers and software and technology, like it's going even faster than that.
Well, we are doubling our processing power every like 6 months, I think, is what the current rate is for computing. And we've been doing that since the 40s. So that's why like these books here seem so antiquated, because they just didn't understand what actual doubling does, what exponential growth does to just the rate of innovation and growth in these fields. So again, if it does feel dated and kind of silly at times, it was written in the late 40s, published in the early 50s, I believe. But that said, I think it is a fantastic book and worth reading if you are a sci-fi nerd like I am.
Yeah, I mean, Asimov is so famous. The cover of the book doesn't even have his first name on it. That's how like big of a name Asimov is. He's like the grandfather of all of sci-fi. Like he's...
Yeah, he may not be like the forefront of the sci-fi genre. He didn't create it, but he is the reason why we have Frank Herbert, or who are some big ones nowadays.
And he's considered. I did a little Wikipedia research. He's considered like one of the big 3 of the like 50s era sci-fi movement, because like it was him, Robert Heinlein, who did like Stranger in a Strange Land, Starship Troopers, and Arthur C. Clarke, obviously 2001: Space Odyssey. So just the hard sci-fi writers. He's one of the biggest names of all time. He's like probably one of the top 10 writers of the sci-fi.
You think
genre.
Those other 2 you mentioned, they're like, I know of them. I've read some of them. I want to read more of them. Most people don't know their names. Everyone knows. If you say Asimov, everyone just knows. Oh yeah, robots and Foundation.
Yeah, and I would argue that his name is more famous than anything he ever wrote. Even I would say you hear Asimov before you hear Foundation or Robot series. Like he's that big of a name. He's just like his name is his brand. It's beyond, like, it goes beyond just books. It's like and created an entire genre of literature. So he's a big name in this style of writing.
Yeah, and he was very prolific. He wrote hundreds of books, hard science and science fiction.
Yep, and he liked to mix genres, which is what this book is. He wanted to prove that you can put sci-fi into any genre, so he wrote a mystery novel that's all hard sci-fi.
And this is, I assume you read the introduction where he was talking about this, right?
I did not.
Okay, well, at least in my, you have the same copy as me. In the introduction, he talks about this. He believes he's the first one to have done this. Well, whether that's true or not, I can't tell you one way or the other. But to mix mystery and sci-fi like he did, he claims that had never been done before.
Yeah, I'm sure it's been done to a degree, probably not at this level. He's probably the first popular writer who's done it for sure.
Again, I'm not totally sure because, again, I'm not, some of these other big authors, like the people that started the genre, like H.G. Wells, I'm not sure enough of what they wrote, and some of those other people in between Asimov or even like Heinlein. I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with his books to say that he never did a mystery sci-fi book.
I mean, like Heinlein was mostly like military sci-fi.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I mean, I can go back and see if there's earlier examples of this. I'd say if you want to start with a mystery novel that's also a hard sci-fi, Caves of Steel is probably your first artifact you can go towards. So
we'll give a quick back of the cover synopsis here. A millennium into the future, two advancements have altered the course of human history: the colonization of the galaxy and the creation of the positronic brain. Isaac Asimov's robot novels chronicle the unlikely partnership between a New York City detective and a humanoid robot who must learn to work together. The Caves of Steel. Like most people left behind on an overpopulated Earth, New York City police detective Elijah Bailey had little love for either the arrogant spacers or their robotic companions. But when a prominent spacer is murdered under mysterious circumstances, Bailey is ordered to the outer worlds to help track down the killer. The relationship between Lige and his spacer superiors, who distrusted all Earthmen, was strained from the start. Then he learned that they had assigned him a partner, R. Daniel Oliva. Worst of all was that the R stood for robot, and his positronic partner was made in the image of and likeness of the murder victim. So yeah, not the greatest back of the cover description, but
yeah, it's a little wooden. I don't know. I had this whole thing when I was I did a little mixture of reading the book and listening to it on audiobook, and I always said if our Daniel was made out of synthetic alloys and motherboards and smart metals, Elijah Bailey's made out of wood. He's a very wooden character, and the writing is I think I said right before we hit record, it's pretty dated, so it's an accurate enough description of what's going on. There's definitely much deeper layers as this book gets deeper into it, but yeah, it's a good surface level explanation of what's going on in the book.
Yeah, I think the big thing to remember is Asimov has a hopeful outlook on when he writes, where when you read something like Dune is more of a not negative but just less hope, not so much hopeful but pessimistic, I guess would be a better word for it, look on outlife and how the future is going to be. So yeah, while his writing may be wooden at times, again probably more from the dated age of the writing, it is saying, hey, going forward it's going to be there are going to be struggles, but we are going to get beyond those struggles. We will find a way to move forward.
Yeah, and like the solution at the end of the book is to like help the medievalists accept space expansion so that they can actually get closer to achieving their goals rather than pulling back and like throwing humanity into another dark age. So that
way to
less,
spoil it, Alex.
Roboticism, but
right in the beginning you spoil it.
Right in the beginning.
That's usually my job.
Yeah, if you're listening to this and you didn't want it spoiled, go back a few minutes.
But yeah, so let's get into the book, Alex. Let's try to do a quick description of the plot and chapter by chapter stuff we do, and then we'll get into more of the larger themes, because I think this book, one of the good things I think with sci-fi that I enjoy is the way that they can look at themes or technologies and really peel them apart and look deeper into them, look into the human psyche of how these technologies affect us. And I think that's more than a lot, especially older sci-fi, that's more the purpose than the actual story or enjoyment of the story. It's to look at, what does this thing mean,
Yes. And honestly, the plot to this book that you just described, it's almost secondary to the philosophical debates that are going on throughout the novel. It's just more of like a driving thing to force like Socratic seminars and questioning what the future might look like if people embrace it versus reject it, and yada yada. Because the murder happens. It happens before the book even starts, and there's a lot of, I guess, stuff going on where they go someplace, they debate things. You meet the Spacers, they debate. He has a lot of philosophical conversations between Bailey and Daniil. Yeah, Daniil. And there's just, I don't know, there's not a whole lot of action. There's a lot of, I guess, debating. There's a lot of talking, like what are the benefits to this lifestyle that we're witnessing versus the drawbacks and yada yada. So there's there's a plot and they come back to it, but I think Asimov's goal in writing this was to delve deeper into it. So we can talk about the plot. But,
so we'll get through that quick, and then we'll get into the larger themes. I think, because I think that's definitely where the book excels at.
Yes.
Is where I know we've talked about other books that have tried philosophizing and just kind of flopped. Night Watch was by the Russian author. There was a an example of someone that tried to do something and just didn't quite have the talent. Where I think this one maybe is not Terry Pratchett or Ian Banks level philosophizing in story form, but it's still a high tier.
Honestly, I'd say that Night Watch, Terry Pratchett is some of the best podcast of plot meets like philosophical debate that we've read.
Which is why I put his name up there.
Yeah, this is like what's the role of like a police officer in the civilized society? That's a really big question to ask in a comedy novel.
Oh yeah. And it does a pretty good job at not answering it. So anyway, we start off with, as Alex said, we have a murder that's done pre-book, and we have I want to say disgruntled, but a cop that's starting to feel the burnout of life as a cop, who's told by his superior that, hey, there's been a murder.
Yes, the murder victim is a renowned spacer, someone who doesn't live on Earth. He lives on one of the colonized planets.
Well, he lives on Earth.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so he was born on another planet. He's living on Earth in a separate city that's attached to New York City. Well, one of the things that was dated in this was how big the cities are. It was like something like, was it 10 or 20 million? Like, these are mega cities, and they're all domed in it. Like, that's just a city, guys.
Yeah, the overpopulation level is like there's 8 billion people on Earth, which is, I think we have more people on Earth right now.
Yeah, and it's not the issue. Granted, for the time, that's what they were worried about. It's like, population should be capping out at like 5 or 6 billion, and we're gonna surpass that and have this mass starvation. So we'll leave that aside. But yeah, so basically, the spacer is living on Earth in Space Town, and he's a roboticist
his name is Sartin.
Sartin, okay, who is one of the world-renowned roboticists who is creating the top tier robots in their little universe. But robots on Earth are extremely hated with a passion. Kind of fills in for like a racism card type thing.
Yeah, picture like modern day like reactions to AI. Like some people, they're all about it, but some people, like if you like AI creates really strong opinions about things. Like if you find out like AI is touching someone's art at all, like it becomes this worthless garbage. Some people treat robots like that in Caves of Steel. That's basically the huge, just vitriolic reactions.
Exactly. And Earthers use robots, say, to do like their farming, do stuff outside, because they've become so used to living into these domed cities where they can't see outside. So they kind of became, I forget what the phobic word for it is, but was it agrophobic or whatever? They can't leave their shelter. But when it comes to day-to-day business, they want human interaction only. But the spacers have a lot more technology, and they kind of bully Earth around. So this murder is a big international potential foobar because the New York upper echelon fear that the spacers are going to come down and basically just eliminate their city or whole planet, because they're already kind of the pariah from the overpopulation and of the larger community.
Yeah, and there's a bit of classism between the people of Earth and the spacers as well, because people on Earth are stacked together in these giant caves of steel, these domes that support their lives, while as spacers, there's like highly regulated populations. There's only like a few 100 million people per colonized planet, and everyone has really long and happy lives.
A little comment on the racism bit. I wrote a note on thing how well Asimov wrote racism, and that R.F. Kuang should probably read these books and take some notes on how to actually write racist people.
Yeah, they're not just these people like spewing bile and like like truly evil people like you read in an R.F. Kuang novel. They're actually like
or just being told they're racist and then them not actually being necessarily racist.
Yeah. They're complex human beings who, like in this book, they're complex human beings who have like actual like reasons to believe, and even though they're portrayed as not necessarily good people, they're actually like there's more than just like, oh, I hate robots. There's there's whole philosophies behind it, not justifying racism by any stretch, but
of course not. But as I said, being able to write characters that are able to where you can accurately portray that and give what are the words I'm looking for? Give a good sense of it, kind of like Huckleberry and Huckleberry Finn, where you can see the racism. Yeah, maybe it beats you over the head a little bit, but you also get a sense of that those are real people.
Yeah. You don't want to give nuance to the racist characters, but you kind of have to if you want it to be a believable thing. Yeah.
So anyway, so Bailey is told by his boss that, hey, we need to investigate this. Is of the utmost importance and secrecy, because we can't let a panic happen because the medievalists will riot, and there were bad repercussions last time that happened. And by the way, you're going to have a partner who is a spacer who's going to help you investigate.
Yeah, so Bailey's already like about this. He doesn't like it. And his boss is an important character, Julius Enderby. So he's a former like college roommate of Bailey, but he's now risen above him in rank as in the police department.
He's better connected. Came from a better place. In the city, you find out there's a lot of classism, and that Bailey, his father, had been a high-standing member of society, but fell from grace, and Bailey has been slowly rebuilding his family's status over his previous 20 years after crawling back out of the gutters. And this is what the carrot that's dangled over him is, hey, you're going to move up a couple of pay grades, get a little bit bigger home, have a little bit better spot in society if you can do this well. So he says, fine, I'll take it. One, to appease his friend, and two, to try to get a slightly better life. So he has to go meet this spacer. He goes to the tunnel that connects New York City and Spacetown, and there is a man who is very wooden just standing there waiting for him.
Yeah, and then much to his chagrin, he finds out the man's name begins with an R, which signifies he is a robot.
Yes, and therefore you get this because the robot is so human-like, you almost don't know what's going on, because
he's a spacer robot, so he's incredibly humanoid. Like a lot of the robots on Earth, they're described as being like made of like translucent plastics and smart metal. Like you can look at him and be like, that's a robot. This guy.
You could think of basically what we see it for robots in a lot of like C-3PO type robots.
Basically.
That would basically be an easy comparison.
Yeah. Or even, I dare to mention the iRobot movie, but like the way they're described in this book is like they almost look like the robots in iRobot. Except
even more or even less human-like, because again, there's a big fear of these robots replacing humans, and therefore there's always an on Earth, there's always this big separation of we need to dehumanize these things as much as possible while still making them more useful so that people accept them. Because as we find out quickly, after they Elijah and Daniel meet, they're headed to Bailey's home where they're gonna because it's the evening time, they're gonna have dinner. They're gonna call it a night, and they're outside his apartment complex area, and there's a store where there's a riot forming where a clothing storefront has brought in 3 robotic cashiers or salespeople, and a woman is having a hysterics about being served by a robot.
Yes, and our Daniel does something very unrobot-like. He draws a weapon on the crowd.
Yes, which, as anyone who's familiar with Asimov's 3 rules of robotics, robots can't do that in his worlds.
Yeah, it's like they can't harm a human. They can't do anything that would knowingly lead to the harm of a human. And what
they can't harm. Basically, yes, they can't harm a human or anything lead up to a human. They can't do. I forget the rules exactly, but they can't harm themselves or other robots unless if that leads to harm of a human. And it's just this whole litany of things. And a lot of the short stories that Asimov writes are ways to try to find workarounds those rules and how that would affect the robots and basically destroying those positronic brains. Well, this is something else we learned pretty quickly in the story. Our Daniel is a one-of-a-kind robot. He's a prototype for doing for basically integrating with people, and we learn later why is because they're trying to sneak robots into human society because the spacers cannot, so they can better study Earth humans and try to save their society. And that even in the different planets, the robots are not this human-like. They are more human-like than the ones on Earth.
Yes, and jumping ahead a little bit, they also learn that Daniel is built in the likeness of Sartan, and that was what Sartan was working on, was building those highly realistic robots.
Okay. So Daniel ends the riot. Bailey's upset and nervous because he feels that because he was told part of his mission is to complete or to solve this case before the robot does, so that they can argue humans are better than robots at solving crimes, and therefore not replace police forces with robots.
Yeah, picture South Park with they took her gerbs.
Pretty much. They go home. He introduces Daniel as a human to his wife and child, and
Jesse and Bentley.
Yeah, and they go off after they have a quick meal to go do other things, so that Elijah and Daniel can start going through their notes on the case. You get Elijah caught up on everything that happened for it. And they start to do that, but then all of a sudden, Jesse comes back, all shaken.
Yes.
He's a robot, isn't he?
Yeah, she somehow finds out in the meantime that our Daniel is in fact a robot, which I think I also mentioned this before we hit record. She's one of the worst written characters I've ever read. She's completely useless, and just an example of you might find in Reddit men writing women, because absolutely helpless, very childlike, very all she does is get nervous and worry about things, and she unknowingly makes mistakes that potentially cost Bailey the case later on in the book. And
which is, before we hit record, I point out to Alex, this is still better than most other sci-fi written at that time, and even for the next 30 years afterwards, 40 years afterwards, where she wasn't described as a dumb blonde bimbo who just is looking for a strong male sex figure to tell her what to do. So small step forward. I mean, remember, this was the late 40s when he wrote this. I think it was right.
Yeah, it was published in 53.
Yeah, 53. So it was, for its time, it probably a stellar example of good female writing. In a modern writing, it's bad.
Yes, for a 73-year-old book, I get it. It's going to be dated. It's going to have some questionable stuff, but
I don't think it was enough to detract from the story necessarily, unless if that's something that you really hold at a impossible standard, and therefore you have a very narrow reading list of what you're able to read and enjoy.
Yeah, I would say just if you're looking for strong feminist themes, look elsewhere. It's just she's not the most good character.
Yeah. So there's a big, so we have a big argument about that. Bailey decides he needs to find another place for him and the robot to stay so that his wife and kids stay safe, because he's trying to figure out, how did this get out? Supposedly only 2 people knew about this partner being a robot, and so if this is already out, my family's in danger, because Earthers do get violent quite easily over these sorts of things, and the last thing they want is a robot that they can't tell is a robot in their midst. So the next day they go out to start investigating. He goes to his boss saying, "Hey, can we get another place to eat, another place for boarding, all that stuff." They do some investigation. They go to, is this when they go to Space Town?
Yeah, they go to Space Town, and Bailey does something that's kind of cringy. He tries in front of like all of a bunch of like spacer bigwigs. He accuses Ardenil of being human, and
gets completely humiliated by his, or he feels humiliated by his accusation. But we find out a little bit later that the spacer that they're talking to was actually impressed, because he liked the fact that this detective thinks outside the box, that he is not just another Earther who has a very narrow view.
Yeah, it's kind of. I've been watching Only Murders in the Building recently, and it kind of reminded me of that one part where like they accuse Sting of murder because he doesn't like dogs.
That's a good show.
Yeah, it's like, okay, it's he's just gonna shooting from the hip on this one. All right.
But what's his name? The
commissioner.
The commissioner.
Enderby?
Yeah. He is embarrassed and threatens to pull Elijah off the case, saying like this is going to be bad public relations. But the spacer forces him to keep Bailey on the case. So they go back. They realize they're being followed by a bunch of medievalists who somehow realize that something fishy is going on, and they have to do a big getaway chase on these. The way it's described, it's almost like those in airports, those walking tracks to make you walk faster.
Yeah. Yeah, they basically do parkour through the city.
Yeah, and he ends up through basically a restricted area, which is some sort of energy plant, I believe.
Yeah, it's like energy or like waste treatment, some sort of recycling plant.
Yeah, and so he's able to lose their followers, so they can get to their space to spend the night. He reports back to the commissioner that, hey, some medievalist cell is after us. They think the spacers believe the murder was committed by extremist medievalists.
Yes, the medievalists who want to destroy all technology and go back to basically what we have in this day and age.
Yeah. The problem with that theory, as Bailey keeps pointing out, is that to get to Space Town, where the spacer was murdered, there's only 2 avenues. There's the tunnel from New York, which is heavily guarded and impenetrable.
Yeah, there's no weapons allowed in Space Town.
Yeah. Or they have to go outside the caves of steel, through the wilderness of fields and whatever else is on the outside.
Uninhabitable Earth.
Yeah, which is like our Earth outside now, except that there's no people out there because they've all moved into these caves. It is, again, just wild or fields or whatever. But because of the agoraphobia, I think that's the right word, right?
Agoraphobia.
Agoraphobia.
Fear of going outside.
Yeah. Agoraphobia that all Earthers have after being locked into these caves for so long and never seeing a basically open space. Bailey says that is impossible to do. There's no way an Earther can get outside of these caves of steel. Even though it's easily accessible, it's unthinkable that they would do it. Be able to walk across this large open space for several miles, sneak into Space Town, which again doesn't have much security to get in and out of because they don't, there are no humans outside these tunnel systems.
Yeah. So picture like the tunnel is like the Mexican border, and the outside world is the Canadian border. Like it's just one is highly just like this wire fences and huge security. The other is a completely undefended border.
Except that one is actually impenetrable versus the other one is completely penetrable, but no one actually couldn't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
But basically, there's no murder weapon, so they have to. This supposed killer has to sneak into the Space Town early in the morning, shoot the scientist, come all the way back, dispose of the weapon. And by the way, this isn't USA. America, everyone has guns. Everything is so highly regulated that to have a energy weapon that was used is near impossible to get a hold of. It's very, very restricted. So think more England style being able to have a weapon versus American style having a weapon. And this person ought to be so out of whack that they can cross back and not be missed. So again, just the spacers say, "Oh yeah, what's the problem with that? This is a major security risk that we've always allowed, and it finally bit us in the butt." And the Earthers are like, "Yeah, no, that just can't happen. It's not possible."
Yeah. So it's a lots of head scratching going on with Bailey and Daniil trying to figure that out.
Yeah. So basically, Bailey is starting to, I guess, kind of unravel mentally because he is so high strung over this case and just too many shadows in the corners of possibilities of him losing his status and being forced to take his family back down to the level that his father was forced to go down to, working in the yeast factories, and his son not going to be living past the age of 30 because it's just such a hard life.
And at the same time, he's also finding that he likes our Daniil, which he, it's this always a gradual thing whenever you have the buddy cop genre. They always end up liking each other no matter how different they are.
But it's also showing that, hey, maybe robots aren't as bad as we thought. Maybe or at least certain robots, and you kind of playing on that racism card of, hey, once you get to know a group, it's not what you thought it was.
Yeah, and Daniil's sense of justice seems to go beyond just his programming. He's those smart technology is 50 years before smart tech really even started becoming a thing. Asimov's really showing that it's something within the realm of possibility.
Yeah. So, but Bailey starts to realize he's being manipulated by the spacers, and that their motivations are not what they seem, or at least according to what they claim they are, and that as he learns more and more, he's finding out that spacers are not a single unified faction like Earthers believe them to be. That it is much more nuanced, and that there are actually 3 different factions of spacers, because there's about 50 planets.
Yeah.
And there are 3 main groups within these planets. The ones that want to wipe out the Earth, just completely nuke it and glass it over and be done with their origins. You have the ones that are indifferent about Earth, just keep the status quo, keep them contained to the planet, and keep them as they are. Continue extracting all their resources from them that we can. And you have the group where the ones that there's Space Town off in New York, but this one group that says no, we spacers are as defunct as Earthers are, and moving forward in our society, we need we're not evolving anymore. We need to start pushing out again, and Earthers are the best people to do this because they're already overcrowded. They have enough people where all these other planets are underpopulated because they just keep very minimal populations on them. And we'll learn more about that in later books, but basically we're told that a planet has the size of Earth is capped out at 1 million people. Some usually even less. So it's very depopulated things, and they're just basically all living like multi-billionaires, and so they have zero desire to do anything. And so this one faction of spacers say, hey, we need to continue pushing the human experience beyond instead of just stalling out. And how we want Earthers to do that, but we have to break them out of their caves of steel. And they realize that Bailey is a great test subject.
Yeah, and they basically that's where a lot of the philosophy comes in, is trying to convince Bailey that spacers' point of view on things is actually the way to go, because it satisfies the desires for a lot of different people's views on things. It satisfies the medievalist philosophy and the spacer philosophy and some of the Earthers' philosophy, because it solves a population issue, it creates opportunities for medievalists to go back to the basics, and it expands the spacer technology and helps them grow.
And just robotics, which they say it is a robotics, and what we would call now strong AI, enhances the human abilities, enhances the ability to go to new places and to survive.
And he kind of finds out that the spacers aren't actually all that interested in finding out who killed Sarton.
Yeah, that is a secondary goal for him, and they're actually going to pack up and leave within a day after or two.
He finds out that towards the end, like as he starts closing in on things, he finds out that they're going to pull the plug on the investigation. He has about 90 minutes to solve the thing.
Yeah. So Bailey has a strong sense of justice. He's able to convince Danielle that, hey, yeah, your programming says the case is over and you had to go, but you were told you have till midnight tonight. Give me till then. Don't give up now. If you were a true detective, you had to have the same need and drive to solve this case no matter what. And Bailey, we find out, has a strong suspicion of who it is, especially when his wife visits him at the police headquarters and has a total nervous breakdown.
Yeah, it's revealed that Jessie is a medievalist herself, and that she was kind of pulled in by someone who was responsible for inciting the riot at the beginning of the book. Someone who worked at the yeast factory.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of just breaks things wide open. They're able to close in on him, and you get some of the medievalist debate on things.
Yeah, and they're able to take him in, question him, find out that there are other insiders that of higher up people that are in their organization that are feeding them information.
And that's how Jesse found out that Danielle was a robot. Yada yada.
And so in later books, there's a 3-book series. In the next 2 books, there's a romance aspect brought on that's troublesome because it becomes an illicit affair. Granted, the whole thing of Bailey's brought to another planet while his wife is still on Earth is kind of they're kind of estranged. I could have swore up and down that the whole reason why they were estranged in those later books was because she had an affair with a commissioner in this book. Did not happen. It's completely did not happen.
I mean, sometimes an author will be setting something up one way and then will change their mind later in the series and do a hard pivot. Like in Star Wars, for example, they didn't know, they decided while they were making the third movie that Leia would be Luke's sister. And that's why they kiss in the second book, or in the second movie, because
it wasn't known yet.
Yeah, they were setting up for that to be a possible love triangle between Luke, Han, and Leia. But they decided to walk that back, make them siblings, and rest is history.
There you go. But anyway, we find out that the commissioner is a medievalist in that group, and we figure out how he killed the roboticist Spacer. And it's because there's a robot in the police station.
Yes, towards the end of the book, that robot is killed or destroyed, I guess, depending on your view on robots.
Is it killed? I forgot.
Yeah, it's killed. Somebody destroys it.
Oh yeah, somebody. So because Earth is gonna try to cover up the murder, and because Bailey knows too much, they had to get rid of him. So they're gonna have him destroying this robot in the office as, you're a corrupt cop. We're gonna send you down to the yeast farms and just make you disappear because you've been corrupted by spacers, essentially. Yeah. But Bailey says, well, no, I didn't hurt the robot. The commissioner did, and I can prove it. Yeah. And he showed that this robot who had taken away a job from another police officer, who wasn't really a police officer, it was more of a clerk, I guess, or someone that just basically runs around passing the messages off between the different cops, and
like an office manager.
Yeah, office manager. And this robot had replaced him, and everybody hated this robot. But
our Sammy.
But Elijah was always pecking at it, and yelling at it, and trying to get it to hurt itself. So when it's found disabled and destroyed, Sammy, they say, well, that's destruction of police property because robots aren't humans, so therefore they can't charge them with a murder. Even though there's the question of, well, what is murder for a robot? Because if you have someone that's as human-like as Danielle, it's hard to say that wouldn't be a murder. Again, a lot of the philosophical talking. But Elijah's able to say, hey, I can prove that it wasn't me, and 2, it was you, Commissioner, that's responsible for this whole thing, where he's able to, because the commissioner who wears glasses, which is a very medievalist thing because you can just get surgery to fix your eyes for anything.
Yeah, he proves that Enderby is in fact a medievalist.
Yeah, and that the reason why he broke his glasses was because he was under such strain for going into the murder, and he used our Sammy to transport the gun outside and bring it back to New York.
Our Sammy was able to do that because Enderby never told Sammy what the gun was for.
Yeah, he just said it was for his personal protection.
Yeah.
because he thought his life was threatened and he needed a weapon when he went to Space Town.
Yeah, so because like if our Sammy had been aware that he was going to use it to potentially harm somebody, he would not have been able to bring the gun. But
then he has our Sammy bring the gun back, but the reason why his target was actually our Daniel, but because he had broke his glasses, he and the human and the robot looked the same. He blasted the human by accident.
Yeah, so it was an accidental killing.
Yeah. Having realized he killed the wrong target, he had to then, come up with a cover story and do all this stuff. And then because our Sammy was also becoming too well informed in a liability, he had to disable the robot also.
Yeah, because if someone had questioned the robot, it's required to give honest
answers. And the fact that Jesse was now connected to the whole case is coming to the thing, and our Sammy was brought her around the police station. It was just too many connections, and the robot had to go.
Yeah, so they're able to prove conclusively that Enderby is the killer, and
basically
they let him get away with it.
But they
blackmail him.
With a caveat. Basically, they say you're going to support this movement of Earth expanding into other planets again.
Yeah. The spacers essentially say, you killed this guy. You're gonna use your power and influence to try and convince the people of Earth that what we're doing is a good thing, and they lay it out like this is even good for you medievalists because the things we've said before. It gives you opportunities to expand and grow and create a world that you see, even though your philosophy does not work for Earth itself anymore because Earth is uninhabitable.
But yeah, so then that's the kind of the story.
Yeah, that's
wrapped up a nice little bow.
That's Case of Steel for you.
I said plot is secondary to the themes, but that is pretty common, especially in this era of science fiction. Alex, final thoughts on the story?
The story itself, I mean, I kind of get frustrated sometimes. It's like it's like I wanted to know the plot. Like, it's a classic whodunit. It's what keeps you turning the pages, and it's sort of like, oh, we're going here and we're talking to somebody, and we're going here and we're talking to somebody, and it's less about what happened in the story and more like here's a philosophical debate over something that's not really realistic, and it's good overall. I gave it, I think, 3.5 stars. I think it's definitely a staple of sci-fi. But I don't know, it's kind of dated though at this point.
Yeah, it's very dated. I remember reading this in college. That was what would that have been, mid 2000s, late 2000s when I read it, and we were just starting that boom of that we had the internet boom, but we're just starting the social media boom where things basically put us where we are now. So it didn't feel as dated then as it does now. We're talking, was it almost 20 years later, 15, 20 years later since I read it last. But I still think it holds up for a lot of things. I think this is still a solid book that if you want to read, if you enjoy science fiction and you want to read science fiction, this is a must-read author, must-read series, even though there are problematic parts with it. And it's got a lot wrong with it, with just science and writing and what have you.
Yeah, but the ideas were there.
But again, it expresses where the science fiction genre came from, I think, and I think that's just as important as reading anything that comes out now for science fiction.
Yeah, it is cool seeing the growth of the genre, like into what it's become today.
Yeah, I mean, and how can you have the genre grow and evolve into something that's better if you don't know where it came from? What its roots are. You had to know the history to know where to go forward at. Otherwise, you kind of revert back to stuff that you are probably best left behind.
Yeah, and it's even good to go further back than this. Like read H.G. Wells or Jules Verne. Like they wrote wonderful books, and this is and it's to understand why things kind of get written the way they do now, and where people find their influences. These are good books to read for that reason alone.
I mean, I read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea to my children, and tough book to read anyways, but then to read it to children out loud, I was struggling at times. But the number of things that they just didn't know, or they're just sailing underneath what we would now call Antarctica, because they didn't know there was a continent down there back then necessarily, or they just thought it was giant ice sheets, or going underneath, going through tunnels between basically the Suez Canal, you're saying, oh yeah, the Mediterranean and the Red Sea are connected by a underground tunnel. So it's like,
I would have started with Around the World in 80 Days. That's a much easier read for the kiddos.
I remember our mother read it to us.
20,000 Leagues?
Yeah, when we were kids. Yeah, so I was like, I'm going to read that to my kids, damn it. And it's like, I don't remember it being this dry and dull and horrible, but...
That's because Mom read well.
Yeah, I don't. So yeah, I got some questions for you, Alex. We'll get into the themes here.
All right, lay it on me.
Do you think the blending of mystery and sci-fi worked for this novel?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's that was the goal, and he achieved that goal.
Okay. Do you think, as a starting point, as a launching point, it has been a good growth since this book was written for that thing, or do you think it's kind of just not evolved the same as other areas?
I mean, you see sci-fi work its way into all sorts of genres these days. I think it's, it's sort of when you start off with your first computer in the 80s to what it is now. That's how it's expanded with sci-fi as a genre. It's just gotten bigger and bigger, and people's imaginations, like, they get fueled by what was written before them, and they expand on it, and you can get really creative with what you read in sci-fi.
As a mystery, do you think, compared to, like, say, Agatha Christie, who was writing, this is like her prime writing time by this point, where she had really ironed out a lot of her stuff from the 20s, do you think, how do you compare her to the Asimov in mystery writing?
I mean, Agatha Christie's the queen of crime. There's no...
Did you figure out who the killer was early on, or were you able to...
I usually don't try to guess it.
But was it a shock to you, or were you kind of like, oh, that makes sense, or...
No, they made it make sense. I don't know. It wasn't really a shock. It almost reminded me of... I have a weird habit of making, like, what do they call them? The analogies to other stuff. It reminded me of the movie Gattaca. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I made Becky watch that recently.
Yeah, where, like, the guy who winds up being the killer, they don't even investigate him because his genetics suggest that he doesn't have a violent bone in his body. And it's similar to Enderby. Like, they look at his biological makeup and they're like, oh, he would never harm a human being. But then there's, like, a deeper thing to it, and you find out, like, oh, it's not all genetics. And, like, this guy's able to kill somebody because he thought it was something else. And so you see... Gattaca is, I guess, a good example, because that's a good movie of how, like, this book can potentially influence or inspire other creations.
What are your perceptions on robots, and how does this book challenge or work with those perceptions?
I mean, I think there's a lot of issues with robots in this day and age. They took our gerbs and all that stuff. The inclusion of AI and smart technology in the world, I think this is definitely prophetic, and, like, maybe it's not thousands or even hundreds of years in the future, but yeah, it's trending this way, and hopefully we don't wind up in our own caves of steel. But I think science kind of, like, takes things in the moment and like extrapolates it from there, and don't realize things can change. Like, we can hold a population of 8 billion people. It's not always the most comfortable thing in the world, but we're sitting in a forested area. There's clearly an inhabitable land around us.
I guess I look at it as that's kind of one of the things that really dates this book, is their view on robots. Because when we think of robots now, we're thinking, like, assembly line arms and whatnot, and AI and all that stuff, where it was brought up in this. Can we ever build a robot that's not humanoid? And everyone's like, how could you? The positronics would be so crazy out of whack that it would just not be possible you had to have a human. It's like, but now it's almost more strange and laughable to have a humanoid robot.
Yeah, to assume that the human shape is the best option for doing literally anything is kind of absurd. That's very, we call it very, like, you have to think pretty highly of yourself to think, like, oh, my body is perfect for this job.
Yeah, I mean, you see what most roboticists in our current age who want to build robots, they're designing. Yeah, you still have a handful that do a humanoid type robot, but most of them are doing dog-shaped or spider-shaped type robots, where you have multiple arms and just, very different from what we would consider back in the 50s of what a robot future would look like.
It's like you don't need a Jetson-style robot maid. You just need a little Roomba to vacuum your house.
Yeah, or a Roomba and a smart fridge, and maybe that
a little rectangle that fits in your pocket with an app on it.
Yeah, that, or just trying to think of some sci-fi movies where you just have that little thing that comes out of the ceiling with all your food prepared for you, and then you just set it up and it does all the dishes and cleans up all the mess for you, and that sort of stuff. You're not going to have that's going to be more the robots of the future than having, like you said, having a robot maid break down every 5 minutes as they vacuum the floor. Did you struggle, or did you sympathize with Bailey's struggle with his biases against robots?
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of see that. It's understandable. There's I don't know, so if you want to make it a metaphor, it's like a bit xenophobic. He doesn't know and he doesn't understand, and he's had very limited exposure, and it's all been negative. So the fact that it takes Ardenil and like spending time with him and being able to like process complex ideas through him, like to be able to understand the capabilities of a robot, and that they're not just these bad things that relegate humanity to being a redundant species. He's you got to have that, I guess, that initial standoffishness or aloofness in order to see that growth in the character and have him come to a more deeper understanding of what a robot is and what it can do.
And I think one thing this book did really well was the earned changing of perspectives for Bailey. I think it wasn't just a flip of a switch or no growth, and all of a sudden completely changed opinion. Throughout this whole book, you were able to, and it's not a long book, it's under 300 pages. It's like 270 pages.
Yeah, and it's got large text too.
Yeah, and they were able to show that growth consistently throughout the whole narrative. There was no leaps and bounds, but there was also no just handouts to his growth. It was...
Yeah, all he needed was like a willingness to try it at first, even if he was reluctantly doing it.
Yeah, he was forced to have to be with this robot, but then once he was with him, he said, "Oh, let's make a best out of a bad situation and try to talk to this robot," because again, a little competition, saying I have to beat this robot, so I need to know everything about this robot, and realizing, oh, okay, maybe we're not as different as initially thought. Do you think Asimov's 3 laws of robotics still have relevance in today's society?
Yeah, I mean, they make sense. They're pretty comprehensive. You can't harm a human being. That's kind of a big thing, like safety above all else.
But I mean, you think about all the problems we're having with AI and the potential problems we see going forward with AI. I feel like that a lot of the laws of robotics are basically pushed aside for the sake of staying ahead of, say, China and the AI, or Russia and the AI battles.
Yeah. I think the problem with the AI is you can just like write a little prompt into Chat GPT. It doesn't have to be the truth. Like you can, whether you're just like spreading some sort of lie or fake news or propaganda. Like it's all like it's going to spit out what you want it to spit out, as opposed to what Asimov's trying to show here, where it's going to the best of its ability, follow a strict set of guidelines. I don't think we have that with what we have today. They're either dumb machines that it's an arm that moves your cup at McDonald's, or it's ChatGPT, which is at the hands of anyone with a smartphone.
Yeah, so I guess I think again our idea of robotics or artificial intelligence has changed so much from this book that it's the rules, while a good starting point, no longer really follow what we need anymore. We need something more complex than these simplistic rules, I think.
Yeah, I think it's almost like a disregard for what would like keep us safe and informed as a populace. So it's you don't really see that in real life, what Asimov was trying to lay down, where there's like some self-imposed limits on what a robot is and what it can do. But it would definitely come in handy, I would say, if we wanted to advance with robot technology, as opposed to kind of the lawless Wild West that we see nowadays.
How does the novel explore prejudice, particularly towards robots and spacers? Do you think that it did it? I know we kind of said we thought it did it well, but does it get it really deep enough, do you think?
I mean, if we're talking about prejudice like against other people. I mean, it's I'm calling other people robots here as like, but yeah, it's not the deepest dive into like xenophobia and prejudice in general, but it's definitely like it's a good, I guess, a jumping off point. You can use themes of how people spread hate and use it to control and manipulate people. Using half truths and whole lies about a race of people, or in this case, robots, and I mean I think it's effective in that manner. I think it doesn't like fully hit home because we're talking about positronic brains and smart metals and alloys and not flesh and blood.
I mean, even with the spacers, we get that sense of hatred towards each other.
It took that as more of like a classism thing than like a racism thing, but it's
I think you can take it as a racism thing because they are physically different than humans. They're taller because of the different gravities, and they're separate, and yeah, there's some class, but you say there are enough physical differences where if a group of spacers and a group of earthers were walking around in a space, they'd all be able to say, hey, they're from that planet, hey, they're from that planet, and because those physical differences would be enough to see those differences. So I guess that's where, and like I said, kind of the way that Asimov wrote it, you definitely get a racism feel where it's like both sides think they're the superiority over the other one, even though there's a classism, but it's more of such a large gap between their cultures that where spacers say, hey, we have all this wealth and space and technology, and it's not like we look at, say, Bill Gates and say, oh, that I could tell a billionaire from a mile away off their looks, and they're so inferior to us, even though we live in the squalors compared to them. We still strive, hey, I want to be a billionaire, or I want at least more wealth or whatever, where the earthers culturally have no desire to be anything like spacers. So I guess that's what I'm trying to get at, where again, Asimov is hitting this really well compared to, say, Kwong, who is telling you, oh, they're racist, but then when you read it, it comes off more as classism. And
also with Kwong is like there's clearly like one point of view is correct and the other isn't, even though there's like a bigotry on both sides. And I think with Asimov, in the case of Steele, it's they like between the spacers and the Earthers, there's bigotry on both sides, but they're able to work towards a common ground rather than just one side being victorious over the other.
I know we kind of laughed about the overpopulation, but what does this book suggest about overpopulation and urbanization?
I mean, I think the domed cities, as far like I think that's something you see in almost every sci-fi nowadays. It's just like the sci-fi dystopia of the overpopulation city and supplies scarcity, and was it calories per person they kept harping on for this. Yeah, I think that's been a worry of humanity's for a long, long time. So it's especially in urban areas such as New York that they're living in. Like it's hard to truck in enough food to feed the population of New York City. It's something like if you were to put I heard somewhere if you put like New York under siege, like you could starve them out in like 3 days. Like it's like not.
Yeah, like they don't have any food made in the city.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's I think it just kind of highlights whether it's overpopulation or not, or like if there's enough food to feed everybody in the world. There's a certain thing about an urban environment where you're just constantly living through this kind of scope where something goes wrong and all of a sudden there's a scarcity and people are going to go hungry.
What ethical questions does this book raise about AI?
Yeah, I think we touched on that a little bit already, just the how easy it is to spread misinformation or to propagandize or weaponize information and use that to your own advantage. And when in reality there's like a lot of useful tools that you can use AI for, but the way it's being used is kind of lawless and unregulated, and you have to be very careful using it. And a lot of people who use AI can use it for nefarious means. And I think even with the dawning of the internet before AI, like that's something you always have to watch out for. So yeah, it's just something to be I think it's just viewing robot and smart technology as something to be cautious with. And there probably should be more regulation over how it's used.
Evaluate the effectiveness of Asimov's dialogue-heavy story style or storytelling style. We did mention that it's very dialogue-heavy in this, and we've bashed Rowling in her first book there.
Cuckoo's Calling?
Cuckoo's Calling. Yeah. On her, they go to this bar and have a conversation, then they go to this cafe and have a conversation, then they go to this bar and have a conversation.
Yeah, and you see that a lot in mystery novels, not necessarily like thriller novels. Like Cuckoo's Calling was definitely a mystery. It's a lot slower paced, and this is similar. I mean, other than doing parkour through the city, there's not a whole lot going on. But that's like how you solve a case, though. You sit down and you talk to people and gather information. So it's, Asimov's style of doing it, where a lot of it is solved through less, like where were you at the time of the murder? It's a lot more like, what are your thoughts on technology? And they go from there. And they debate back and forth, and you see people's minds shift or opinions shift.
And at the same time, they're still able to gather information because, saying, "Hey, where were you at this time?" Someone just makes up a random alibi, but then you start saying, "Hey, tell me about this philosophical belief you have." Oh, maybe you're not telling the truth because I realize, hey, you're a medievalist.
Yeah, and I think Cuckoo's Calling would have benefited from being under 300 pages as well.
Yeah, probably.
I finished the 4th book in that series. Yeah. I think it's So Silkworm and Career of Evil were both very good. Gosh, was it Lethal White is the 4th one? And it's good, but it's definitely hitting the too long territory.
You need to give me those books as soon as you can.
I will, yeah. I meant to bring them down with me, sorry. But yeah, they, I don't know, I don't know if I'm going to go on to the 5th one because they just get longer and longer. They're like, I think book 8 came out and it's like almost 1,000 pages. So I'm like, for a murder mystery, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. I think most murder mysteries, they say don't between like 50 to 70,000 words.
Yeah. Keep it concise. That's
which is about what this book is.
Yeah. So my Wikipedia research, she started it after the murder happened because for like 2 reasons. Number 1 was he's apparently squeamish and didn't want to write violence, and 2, he's was told by a writing guy start the story as late as possible in the story.
Yeah. Yeah, they do that a lot. I was listening to Brandon Sanderson talk where he's saying the start of your story should be as late as possible in an action scene so that you don't know quite what's going on, but you know something important is happening.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't look to Brandon Sanderson for how to write brevity.
No, but again, that is kind of what we did here. Where except that we completely missed the action and just went to the after report, but. Yeah. What makes the world building feel believable despite the minimal description?
I think the minimal description actually helps. You're not. I think that's always a difficult thing with sci-fi is getting into the world, and a lot of times they really front load it and hammer it really hard and do a deep dive into this world we're living in. Whereas if you do Caves of Steel, where it's a shorter book, you can actually kind of scaffold it or create an onion effect with it where you can peel back layer after layer as the books go on. So they give you enough to sink your teeth into and follow along. It's a domed city, a city with a dome on it. And there's robots. Cool. Ready to go. And that's all you really need to know to get into the book. Whereas, if it's Lord of the Rings, where it's an entire sprawling epic, but you can also just read, or you can just read The Hobbit first and get a briefer introduction into Middle-earth. It's better that way if you can just kind of go slower, and having limited world building in your first book I think definitely helps pull in the more casual reader, someone who's not necessarily ready to deep dive into sci-fi and buy a t-shirt with a map of the world on it and it's just a guy who's casually interested. I've heard of Asimov, I'm going to check this out, and then they read it and they can follow it, and it's this is good. And, so I think it works better that way if you're a little more limited in the first book. Yeah,
and there's no info dumping here. There's no boring parts where you just have to get into the weeds of a backstory you don't really care about or a history you don't really care about yet.
They did do that a little bit with Jesse's name Jezebel. I was why am I learning about Jezebel?
I mean, there was
it ties in eventually, but at the same time, I'm this is not good writing.
again, I think that was just bad, like you said, the bad female writing and trying to justify her being there. But I think it was also heavy themes. We didn't really talk about it, but heavy religious themes throughout this book. This book is, for a science fiction, is very religious in a lot of aspects, which I didn't remember the first time I read through it. I didn't pick up on a lot of it, but reading it this time, I'm like, well, a lot of this is really religious referenced in a lot of areas. They bring it up repeatedly. There's definitely a heavy theme in this book.
Yeah, and just like the whole idea of like humans creating life with robots, it's a very common theme in literature. It's just like humans trying to achieve godhead and kind of suffering the consequences for their hubris, and so you kind of see them living that on Earth with that going on.
Yeah, last question for you, Alex. Does this novel and its ideas and science stand up to the test of time? What did Asimov get right and wrong in his predictions and novel writing?
I think he did a good job setting it like way far in the future. Like you see that sometimes where like they're like, oh, 20 years in the future, and there's like flying cars and everyone's got like, you know, it's like Back to the Future Part 2.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that.
What was that, 2015 or whatever?
Yeah. Hey, they got the hoverboard, sort of.
Yeah, it's not really a hoverboard. It's got a fucking wheel, but it's just
No, they have legit hoverboards, but they're very limited in their where they can go. Like basically, it's use magnets and everything so it's like you're basically stuck in this one spot.
Yeah, okay.
The size of this room, maybe. You have like a 20-foot by 20-foot space.
Yeah. There weren't that many Jaws movies. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's or even like 1984 with that kind of dystopian thing was like 40 years in the future from when George Orwell wrote it. So with Asimov setting it thousands and thousands of years in the future, where it's kind of almost inconceivable, some of his ideas. Especially in the 50s, when you're thinking about dome cities and flying cars and robots, like it's not something you see every day, or you could even like fathom 75 years ago. So it's I think it's a good idea to do that, to set it really far forward. You can kind of, even as time goes along, even if it's not on track with the way he predicted it, you can kind of see growth in that direction. And it might change directions, it might shift, because that's how science works. Things change, and you update your philosophies and your thesis and your what do you call them? The high something or another. I don't know. Edit that out. But it's
that will stay.
Hypothesis. That's what it is.
Hi.
But yeah, I think it's definitely showing that life can trend in that direction, and you can see it as early as 1950 that it's been heading in this direction with this massive technology boom.
He's definitely influenced multiple generations now. I mean, there's kids today that will pick up these books because they're so, it's such easy to get a hold of them, and they're still readable even to today's standards, that he's going to influence the minds of our future scientists, I think. So
yeah, for sure.
I think that's, he's basically one of those authors that's proved you can stand the test of time. I mean, so he wrote the majority of his writing that is popular writing in the 40s and 50s, and for science fiction, before he went to nonfiction for quite a while. But he said, people, he is a household name, essentially. You say Asimov and you immediately know what that means.
Yeah, he's one of the first names in science fiction, and not just alphabetically.
It does help. So that is The Caves of Steel by Isaac Asimov. Alex, you got...
I should check more Asimov out. This is one of like 2 Asimov books I've read.
What's the other one you read?
What's it called? Like The Fantastic Journey. It was a novelization of a movie about like people that shrink themselves and go inside of a human body and like travel around. I don't know if you...
I haven't read it. I've heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any last comments, Alex?
It's very good. Overall, it's a little wooden, a little dated, but sometimes it's fun to take a step back in history and kind of see where things come from. And Asimov is, like you said, a household name, and he's worth reading for years and decades to come.
Okay. Next book, Alex.
Yes, we got my pick. You know me, I love my YA. This one's...
This is not even quite YA. This is before YA,
This
Alex?
is probably middle grade fiction, I would say. This is one I read just kind of out of curiosity. One time I saw it at a library, and I'm like, oh, I'll try it out. It kind of looked like almost a rewrite of Alice in Wonderland to have more just like wordplay in it, which is saying a lot for Alice in Wonderland. But this is probably one of the most obscure books I've ever chosen. But it's called...
It was hard to find. I did finally find a copy, Alex.
Yeah, I ordered a copy on Amazon, and they sent me a copy of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. It just had the wrong sticker on it, so I had to reorder it. But yes, this book is The Lost Track of Time by Paige Britt. So I looked her up. I think this is really the only novel she's written, and it's very cool. I liked it when I first read it, so I'm looking forward to trying it again, seeing if it's something that's kind of stuck with me. But it's a book I'm a fan of.
Yeah, so that will be next month's book. We'll make sure we get that out on time. We're having trouble. We're doing a good job being ahead in the reading, Alex, but finding times to record has been an issue lately, I've noticed.
Yeah, we live far apart. That does make it difficult.
Yeah. But that said, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
I'm just looking forward to reading it.
Okay.
Yeah, plug our stuff.
So yeah, if you want to keep following us or hear more about us, we have an Instagram at kendallbookworms. We have an email, kendallbookworms@gmail.com. If you want to get a hold of us, you can do it through the DMs there or email us or comment on or rate us on Spotify and Apple or YouTube. We are on YouTube, Kendall Bookworms. We do try to read all of the comments. I haven't had any recently to laugh at. A lot of people like to hate on us. We enjoy those. They don't usually approve of our opinions of the stuff we negatively review, so go figure.
Yeah.
Alex has some books for sale.
Yeah, we got Paul Plimpton vs. Ragnarok and The Destroyer.
Yeah, so find those on Amazon. Give Alex some money. Remember, this November he's going to republish his second Destroyer book.
Yes, The Shelter. I'm on track for that. Been working on it.
Oh, that's good, being that it's we're recording this in, still May?
Yep.
So you have still a fair amount of time. I'd be awfully disappointed that...
It's not a long book. It should go pretty easily, you would think.
See, we both have mediums, and I have a Substack. Those will be in the links below, where we review books that we don't cover on this podcast. We have a competition of whoever can have 100 reads, not views, but reads on our mediums. The other brother has to read said book, and we will do a bonus episode on that book. Alex is currently working on one book already, Between Two Fires, hit over 100 reads. So that will be a bonus episode in the future at some point. Alex, you have another one that hit 80 reads.
80?
80, yeah. So that's
Is
the time.
The Banks one?
Yeah, Ian Banks. We got 20 more reads before Alex has to do that one. That's Complicity. So make sure you check out that review. Alex, you were worried that eventually that would be all of our bonus episodes. We're going to see if you can get one more before the end of this year 2026 for me, and then we'll call it quits on that competition. So people, check them out.
Change the competition after that?
We'll change the competition a little bit. But if we can get one more that Alex has to read, that would be great. So click on my link. Alex covers smut books. We don't want to read those.
Which is all the more reason to read my stuff and make Joe read them.
Yeah, so definitely check out those. I said, I got Substack, and all my reviews also go on to Goodreads and Storygraph, so that if you don't want to go onto those sites, you can go. There's plenty of other places to check out. Let's see, what else we got, Alex? Anything? Everything? We have a Facebook that we don't really do much with, but if people start getting onto it, we'll do more with it. I mean, that's kind of, we're trying to see where people are at and meet them there.
Yeah, just like and subscribe wherever you like and subscribe for things.
We do post episodes on the 5th and 20th of every month. So, Alex, let's get out of here.
All right. Well, that was Caves of Steel by Isaac Asimov. Tune in next time for The Lost Track of Time. Until then, I'm Alex.
And I'm Joe.
And this has been Bookworms.
Out.